Hi, everyone. I'm LaTonya Williams, and I'm a customer success manager at Swivl. Thank you all for taking time to join us for our webinar today. The topic that we're covering is build meaningful connections with Swivl across Florida. So just to talk about our agenda for today, I always think that's important for everyone to know what's the topics and what are we covering and how long will it take? So I'll give a brief introduction. Again, I'm LaTonya Williams. Also, we will be listening to, and we'll be having two people that will be participating in a panel discussion. And our panelists are Mariel Milano, and she'll be talking about her experiences with Swivl at Orange County Public Schools. And we also have Dr. Caryn Long, which she has given me permission to simply call her Karen. And she will be talking about her experiences at Montverde Academy. And then at the very end, we'll open it for Q&A. But you can, again, if you have questions, please feel free to type those into the chat. So just to talk a little bit about myself, I am a former educator. I've actually born and raised in Florida myself. I'm a graduate at University of Central Florida. So if there are any nights there, you can finish. And so I'm an educator, a former educator, but I've been working for Swivl now. I've worked in different districts throughout Florida. And so it's a pleasure for me to be able to join you all today. Just to give you some information in the bio for Mariel Milano and also for Dr. Caryn Long, I'm going to read those real quick for you all. Dr. Caryn Long has been in the education profession for 33 years in a range of different positions, from classroom teacher to manager of the Digital Learning Network for NASA Education. She was awarded her PhD in educational technology from Oklahoma State University in 2015 and currently serves as the STEM integration specialist and 6th grade earth space science teacher at Montverde Academy in Montverde, Florida. She enjoys spending time with her two sons, 4, 17, and Randolph, 14, and going to the beach as often as possible. And next we have Mariel Milano. And I want to start off with this quote: how can we prepare students for a world which we do not know yet or do not yet know? That is the question that Mariel Milano asks herself each morning. She is the director of the digital curriculum for Orange County Public Schools, the 10th largest school district in the nation. In this role, Ms. Milano serves as the program manager for the district's digital curriculum efforts, including the managing of the vertical and horizontal cross-functional governance process and overseeing a professional development for the district's Launch Ed digital learning program. Her most exciting work to date has been the deployment of over 200,000 digital devices to enable anytime, anywhere learning for students at all of the elementary, middle, and high schools for her district. Mariel also serves as president of the Florida Council of Instructional Technology Leaders. And thank you all for being patient as I read through those bios, and we'll go ahead and get started. So, again, our Swivl mission is to make relationships the foundation of education. And I think that this quote really lends itself to that. At the most fundamental level, what makes coaching work is relationships. And this quote comes from Brian Lamb, who is the co-creator and founder of Swivl. And that is really at the heart of what we do here at Swivl. We have tools that we provide to allow educators to connect with other educators, but also to be able to connect with students as well. And that's through the use of video coaching, which are our Swivl Robots and our Teams platform, but also with our audio tools, which are Synth and SkillSpace. And if any of you are interested in learning more about that, please feel free to type questions in the chat. And I'll also give you some other information to be able to connect with us on social media and our website at the end of this webinar. We're going to go ahead and begin with our panel discussion. We were thinking that the best format is a conversation style and be able to pose questions to our two panelists. And again, thank you both for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Long, thank you, Karen, and thank you, Mariel, for joining us today. So the first topic is improving your relationship building practices. And the question that I wanted to first pose to you all is, in what ways are you looking to improve your relationship building practices in your district, but also in your schools? And then how are Swivl's tools helping you to be able to do that? And I wanted to start that question with Mariel first. And please let me know if I need to repeat that question for you, Mariel.
I want to make sure I got it right. It was, how are we using our tools to improve relationships? Is that right?
Yes, at the heart of it, absolutely.
Okay, so we are using our Swivls in a number of ways. We purchased them initially to improve relationships between students and teachers who were engaging in learning at a distance. Last year, when we were engaging in our Launched Ed at Home synchronous learning model. And this year, we have continued to use Swivls to improve relationships between our students and teachers by having Swivls be an option to increase student engagement. Sometimes our teachers are incredibly creative, and several of them have used them as kind of a video booth, if you will, for students to be able to record and share their thoughts as part of our SEL initiative, or social emotional learning. We've also used them to increase relationship building practices between peers as we are beginning to open up practice. And so our teachers can use Swivls to be able to visit each other's classrooms and build trust and observe different practices that are happening, and also to improve relationship building practices between coaches and teachers by allowing them to get a more genuine opportunity to reflect together by using video in that reflection process.
I want to just build on that question for just a second, because you mentioned the video booth. When was that idea? Who generated that idea, and how long have you had that going in the district?
So I'm going to be totally honest and tell you that I cannot take credit for this. As I'm sure Dr. Long knows, our teachers are way more creative than we will ever be. And we have a social emotional learning initiative in our district that's been going on for at least a year. And the purpose behind it is to make sure that we've engaged our teachers and our employees in social emotional learning competencies, right? And to make sure that they've really built those skills in addition to academic skills. And we've done a lot of things, like including self-care check-ins at the beginning of class, implementing praise badges in Microsoft Teams, things like that. Well, we had some teachers, particularly at the upper elementary school level, who I think recognized that students in this generation really like seeing themselves on video. I have 4 girls myself, and they find themselves fascinating. And so they kind of took it upon themselves to be able to have students record their thoughts and perceptions with their Swivl. And I thought that was kind of a neat idea. And so one of the teachers that I happened to talk to, she had it set up kind of in the corner of her room as an alternative to a listening center that I would have had as a teacher. So instead of listening, she had a recording center. And so the kids went over there, and she had this little shower curtain thing set up. And the kids kind of went behind there, and they shared all of their deepest, darkest secrets with their teacher. And she had a little prompt that they would respond to every day. And it gave them an opportunity to talk and share with the teacher in a way that they might not have in front of the class. So, I think of it almost like a video journal or a video blog, if you will. But I thought it was a really unique take on it. Is it happening district-wide? No, I would not say that, but I thought it was definitely a neat idea and something that takes Swivl from the realm of just being for teacher to teacher or kind of hybrid learning to something that was really for student engagement. And I thought that was very neat.
Oh, thank you for elaborating on that, and taking some of us that have been in education for a number of years say, oh, it's similar to the listening center, and it's definitely very current and great for the generation now. And I guess it's sort of like the confessional type of situation with all the reality shows and things like that. So thank you for elaborating on that. So Caryn, would you be able to answer the question as well? Do you need me to repeat the question?
That'd probably be a good idea.
I completely understand that. So the question was, in what ways are you looking to improve your relationship building practices at your school?
So we bought the Swivl Robot for all of Montverde's teachers when we were all COVID-19'd.
I love that. That's the way to definitely put it. COVIDing is one of the terms we're using at Swivl too. COVID. Yes.
Exactly. And it was a great tool to be able to connect to our students that were had chosen to be 100% online and have the freedom to move around our classroom to direct our students that had chosen to be face-to-face, as well as our hybrid students that came both. What I found with our students is that particularly the hybrid kids, they felt more comfortable coming to the classroom. And actually, we had a lot of students transition from 100% online to the classroom. And I believe that was facilitated through the use of the Swivl Robot because they felt like they were present in the classroom, and they were able to participate in the movement as the teachers were moving around. So by the end of the year, we had a significant number of students that had moved from that fully online environment to an in-classroom environment. For building relationships, I think that, and I'm sure Mariel would probably agree, this year in particular is a lot of rebuilding of relationships because we've tended, socially, we've tended to sequester ourselves in our own little boxes in our homes to keep ourselves safe. And we've gotten very comfortable in being in this environment that's more of a video. But not everybody is comfortable being recorded and in front of a camera. And so this is where I see a lot of value in some of the products that Swivl has developed. I was fortunate enough to participate in your Camp Construct this summer and had an opportunity to learn about synth and about Teams, not to be confused with Microsoft Teams.
Thank you for that clarification.
There you go. It's Swivl Teams.
Yes.
But it gives an opportunity for not only educators, but students to record their voice without being videotaped. And I find value in that because those, for the social aspect that Mariel was talking about earlier, you'll have children as well as adults that are not comfortable being on camera, but they do want to share what's on their minds. And there's some comfort there in being able to do that and not feel like you're being judged for the way that you look or the way that you act when you're talking. And I found through that experience in the Camp Construct that as people used it more during that summer experience, the more detailed they became in their explanations. And so I see using that with our students and being able to explain, for example, different concepts in science and being able to apply what they've learned to real world situations and not have to worry about what they're going to do visually. They can just talk about it and then giving my response to them and knowing that response is personal and they don't have to listen to me give a response in front of an entire classroom, where they also might be embarrassed by, whatever feedback I might give them. As far as working with other educators, I see also a lot of value in the fact that teachers can videotape or record themselves using the Swivl Robot, and then watching what they've done and commenting through Synth or Teams about their own personal reviews on how they've done. And, you know, we're all hard critics on ourselves as it is. We're the hardest critics. Being able to watch yourself teach is one of the best professional developments I find that we have. And being able to critique yourself before somebody critiques you kind of softens the blows that that might come, because you are going to be more critical of what you've done on your own. So there is a lot of value in this product, and it's developing that relationship and making sure that you provide a sense of security and comfort. And I believe that Synth and Teams absolutely does that.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Caryn. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. We're going to now shift to best practices. So can you share, we'll start with Mariel, can you share some ways that our video coaching tools are helping your teachers share, learn, and grow?
So we've been really intentional this year in planning for opportunities for the use of the Swivl in the classroom. We were very fortunate to use some of our relief funding to be able to purchase about 6,000 Swivls. We're a large urban school district, so while that does sound like a lot, that is all really only about enough for one for every 2 teachers in our district. And so what we've done is we've built the use of the Swivl into existing programs. So here are some examples of what that looks like. We've built it into our new teacher portfolio or onboarding program so that our teachers are able to record themselves and reflect on that personally before their first observation as a new teacher, to be able to track things like teacher talk time or student engagement or any of the other metrics that they might have previously been trying to reflect on, but would have had a very difficult time kind of seeing in an objective way in their classroom. We've also built it into our mentor program and did significant amount of training with the Swivl team and our lead mentors to be able to share with our lead mentors how they can use the Swivl live coaching platform to be able to bring their mentees into their classroom and see that the best practices that they are using. Again, our focus this year is really around SEL and social emotional learning. So being able to see them implementing social emotional learning in the classroom, which we know when a teacher walks into the back of the room, it's a very different experience, right, than when you are remotely there. You get to see authentically more how students are engaging with the teacher without an adult body kind of in the back of the room, you know, just being there. So we've also incorporated it there. A third place that we've incorporated it is as a part of what others might think of as alternative certification. So an opportunity for our teachers who come to us from other professions and maybe need a broader range of experiences. And so we have the Swivl baked into their program to be able to see others teach, and then also for them to be able to record themselves teaching and get really specific feedback about their instructional practices from their instructional coach on their campus. And then last but not least, we have it baked into the Facilitative Coaches series, which is what in our district we use to train coaches how to be better coaches. And so we've incorporated it there as part of our technology module to be able to have our coaches use it to observe teachers incorporating technology in their classroom and give them really specific feedback about how they can better manage the use of instructional technology in their classroom and how they can really use instructional technology to increase student engagement. And so throughout the thread, throughout all of those experiences is video coaching. And then last but not least, we have encouraged our teachers to use it as part of their deliberate practice. And so our teachers have the ability to check out a Swivl from the Library Media Center and then take it into their classroom at any time when they are working on a specific element that they are practicing throughout the year to improve their own practice, and be able to record themselves teaching and reflect on that. Love the new annotation tools that come inside of Swivl Teams. And then they have the option to either, of course, keep that private or include it in their deliberate practice plan and share that with a coach or an administrator at their discretion. So we feel like we've been intentional. We think that we are beginning to see practice open up and expand across grade levels, across schools, across different learning communities. And we believe that one of the key things we will see improve are classroom management, student engagement, and the use of social emotional learning competencies in the classroom.
Wow, that's fantastic to see. Mariel, I want you to unmute for 1 second because I want to ask you another question on top of that.
Okay.
To see how it's been integrated in those programs. And I know many times, for me, definitely being a former educator and working on a district level with curriculum planning and instruction, there's a lot of hours that go into that. So would you, I know, would you be able to just sort of briefly discuss, how much time and planning that was involved in that?
Well, I guess you could say that the bio picture was like my pre-COVID picture. So I think that probably describes how much time went into it. But, it's definitely not an individual effort. So one of the things that I think is exciting that we've been working on for a long time in our district is really intentionally planning across departments. And so I work within the digital learning department. And so our initial role in the digital learning department was get them out, right? As I'm sure Dr. Long was as well, and then get people trained on how to use them and get hybrid instruction going, right? But then after that transition back to face-to-face started happening that Dr. Long was describing, we really started over the summer going like, okay, what else? What other? One of my favorite quotes is technology cannot be a solution to a problem you don't have, right? So, and oftentimes we just are like, well, we have a Swivl, what can we do with it? No, it's what problem do you have that the Swivl is trying to solve? And so one of the ongoing problems, I think, in most districts is, really increasing the quality of instruction in the classroom. And so we started meeting about what that would look like. And so we brought in our instructional development team that's in the professional learning department, and we trained them on what a Swivl can do. And then we had just a brainstorming session and we said, hey, let's talk about all of the places that we wish self-reflection could occur, but we've never had the tools to make that happen, right? Yes. And so we kind of just, for lack of a better word, right, kind of made a web of all of those things. And then we looked at all of the places that self-reflection did technically happen, and there was like an assignment for it or something like that, but maybe it was not happening in the most authentic way. For example, like we had to watch a teaching channel video versus like a video, of somebody in my own school, or maybe where it was happening and it just wasn't like as convenient, or there was some sort of barrier, right? And then we said, okay, well, in all of those places, how can Swivl be a solution to that problem? And so then we worked with Amanda and our customer success team at Swivl, and we looked at all of those places and we rewrote those assignments and those modules and those directions to be able to support the use of Swivl. In some places, it was as an option. So it was like you could do this or this or this. And then in other places, it was just wholeheartedly replaced because the previous option really wasn't working for anyone, right? Yes, and I would say, like, how long did that take? Amanda and I look, I think, like pretty good, but it's probably Maybelline, right? So, I think it was for sure, like at least 3 months. We were working on it, I think, from like May through August. And then as we developed that and talked about it, then we started planning those training sessions, okay, who are we going to reach out to? And, when you're doing something school by school, which, I wish sometimes in a large district we could do that, but we had to really think about how we would train additional people. And so we started looking at like who those key stakeholders were. So we brought in our principals and we said, okay, principals, where are the areas? Here are the things you could possibly do with Swivl. What are the areas you're interested in exploring for your school? Then we said, okay, let's bring in our assistant principals and ask that question. Okay, now let's bring in our lead mentors. Okay, now let's bring in our library media specialists. And then we did offer some summer training directly to teachers. And those 2 sessions were specifically around engaging in self-reflection and increasing student engagement. But to be honest with you, that was like the least part of our strategy. We really looked at like teacher leaders and administrators and district staff so that it would become more of like a culturally embedded part of what we were doing rather than going classroom by classroom, because with 16,000 teachers, we were just concerned that adoption would take really too long. And so, we just kind of went in a different direction. Was it a perfect solution? No. But I'm excited that we were able to increase awareness about Swivl. I'm excited that we were able to successfully onboard other departments. So it wasn't just like a cool tech thing. Yes. And I'm excited that we were able to begin to change the narrative from hybrid instruction to improving instructional practice. So, those things I think are wins for us.
Fantastic. And thank you for providing those examples in that detail, because I think sometimes that's the key piece that's missing is how much time, how many people need to be involved for you to be able to see the success, right? Or just those beginning steps of successfully implementing technology to help improve instructional practices. And it takes time and it takes bringing people in, getting people involved to do that. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And Caryn, just to go back and pose the question again, can you share some ways that our video coaching tools at Swivl are helping your teachers share, learn, and grow?
I don't think I can add much more than what Mariel said. I can say that our school is looking at ways that we can integrate Swivl more into our practices. And I see a host of opportunities, to be able to do that. For example, we are an independent school, and after 3 years, the staff members can apply to be what they call master teachers. And the master teachers are the ones that provide the mentorship for teachers that are just coming on board for the school, whether they are brand new to the profession or whether they are not new to the profession, but new to an independent school situation. And so there is a variety of different things that we have to do to prove ourselves worthy of the master teacher moniker. And one of those things is doing recordings of our classrooms and then providing specific information, qualitative data about how we can critique ourselves and improve our presentation. And so definitely the synth program, being able to record what we've done and then provide that critique is a place that I'm definitely going to be looking at and speaking with our curriculum and instruction dean about. In addition to that, providing recordings for those teachers that are in the master program for potential candidates that want to come in to teach, so that those can be made available on our website. So those that are looking to come work here could see what it's like teaching in this environment, I think is huge. It's when you're moving from a public school setting to an independent school setting, which, for most of my career, I was in public school, this is very different. And so being able to provide that glimpse into what this setting is like, I think would be hugely beneficial. And in addition to that, I think also setting up those relationships between the mentor teachers and the beginning teachers would be great to use these tools for. And, as I said earlier, there is some comfort in being able to critique yourself first before you lay yourself bare in front of more veteran teachers. And your particular products provide that. And, after each group has a chance to comment on quality and areas that need to be improvement, being able to make that connection in a less threatening environment is definitely something that does plus. So
I think that's great. And I'm curious to learn more about the process and what the difference is, like you said, from adjusting from public school to an independent school. And then also, so that's one question. And then the second is, I love the fact that you all are looking at other ways to be able to use Swivl tools, and you're already having discussions about that. And what is the motivation? What are you seeing, like momentum amongst the other teachers and educators at your school in regards to that? So first question about making the transition. And then, because I know a lot of educators are interested in learning more about that. But then second, what type of motivation are you seeing amongst your team to be able to look at other uses for Swivl tools?
Well, the main difference between working in a public school setting and an independent school setting is that there is a lot more freedom to set your own curriculum. So while I'm teaching Earth Space Science, when I taught in the Lake County Public Schools, I was told how exactly what I was going to teach, when I was going to teach, and how I was going to teach it.
Okay.
In the independent schools, you are told your subject that you're going to teach. You are still held to standards, all right? But you can pick the standards that you want to teach, that you are going to accomplish your curriculum.
Okay.
And you can pick and choose how that's done. So I have autonomy in my classroom on how I teach these standards. So I'm still held to either national standards or NGSS, for example.
Yes.
But I get to choose exactly how I'm going to accomplish those. I don't have a textbook in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
We use everything that's current, from NASA Gov websites to NOAA to, those are the things that we do. And we are constantly taking risks in this classroom that I didn't necessarily have time to do with Lake County because it's very regimented. There's very specific things that have to be done, and they have to do that because they have end of grade tests, right?
Absolutely.
So there are parameters that I don't have here that I did there. And it's a culture shock when you first come in. What do you mean I get to do whatever, how, what do you mean?
And overwhelming too. That can be it can be like, oh, this is free, but then it's like, oh wait, it all falls on me. Like,
it's very daunting. Yeah,
right.
It's very daunting. So while it sounds like the dream, you hear, it's a lot of work to be able to do that. So, there are pluses and negatives. Exactly. With great power comes great responsibility. You've got it, Mariel. There are pluses and negatives on both sides, right? So providing some examples of what it's like to teach in an independent school using these products, I think is a great way to be able to inform the public, not only teachers that are coming into the classroom or might be interested in teaching here, but also say to parents that want a glimpse of what it's like to be in this environment. And so doing little clips and snips and providing it on the website, I think would be huge, particularly for parents. We have we have students from all over the world here, literally. There are 92 different countries represented here at Montverde Academy. And so for those parents who send their students from Sri Lanka and Japan and Russia and, from all over the world, wouldn't it be nice to have something, a resource for them to take a look and see, do I really want to send my child to this school? Because it's not just about the great sports. They're getting an education here. And they want to make sure their children leave here with a good education. And so, where local folks could come and tour, it'd be a good thing to provide for our boarding students' families to be able to get a look into.
Oh, that's great. And thank you so much for elaborating on that and how the tools, again, support your school, particularly in being able to do that. Okay, so the next question I want to pose to Mariel, and with an increase in engagement among your coaches and teachers, how is it impacting your within your district, and are you seeing that within the schools? Are you seeing an impact yet? And if so, what type of impact is it making?
So specifically an impact around agency and voice?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. So I think where we're starting to see an impact is around empowerment. I think that's maybe the right word for it. And so I think teachers are beginning to decrease their fear of having video in the classroom, which I think is important because, I tell people all the time that education is one of the very few professions where we never watch ourselves do our craft. And I say that as a veteran educator, right? I mean, a brain surgeon reviews back and sees how well they do, but for some reason, we don't do that here. We're like, no, so I think it's important. I think it's really important to understand and be empowered and understand that with that responsibility comes a degree of freedom, because you can speak and be knowledgeable about your craft and what happened and really be able to reflect on it. So I'm excited about that. In terms of agency and voice, I would love to see us do more with synth. I'm very jealous to hear Dr. Long talk about those experiences because, we were really laser focused, I think, on Swivl teams for a very long time. And just this summer, we really started introducing synth. And there have been some schools that have really taken off and run with it and started creating some podcasts and things like that, because I think they really appreciate that the platform can be more, can be as private as you need it to be, I guess is a good way to say it. And most other platforms like that tend to have a lot of other adults in the space, and that can create some security concerns. And so I'm excited to begin to see that. But really what I think our long-term hope is, and my boss's boss just the other day, our associate superintendent said, Mariel, do you remember 7 years ago when we all first started down this path and we were like, we would love for one day a child at West Orange to be able to take Chinese at East River because they don't offer it here, right? And I said, yeah. And he was like, we're almost there. And I think that's where we want this to get to. We would like ultimately our students to be able to use Swivl, to be able to go to classes in other schools, to be able to really have an element of voice and choice around their learning and where they go, and not be bound by their attendance zone or transportation or whatever the case is. And we would really like for our teachers to be able to have the freedom and the flexibility to be able to engage and be peer partners and thought partners with teachers at any school, not just their school. So right now, mentors are limited, and I'm sure it's the case at Montverde as well. Your mentor is right there. They're in the same building because it's where you are, right? And that's not really a choice. We've never really opened that up before. So And that's because you have to have proximity. You have to be right there to be able to help mentor a teacher. And so we're hoping that with Swivl and with Swivl teams, that in the long view, if I'm an anatomy teacher and there's no other anatomy teacher at my school, I don't have to have a mentor who's a US history teacher. I can have a mentor who's an anatomy teacher at another school and really have that be authentic and be able to go directly into their classroom using some of these tools. So, you know, are we there? Absolutely not. Are we like a third of the way there? Yeah, and I think that's pretty great for only a year in. And I'm excited to see, you know, where we would be a year from now if we came back together and talked.
I think that's great. Again, just being able to use the tools, like you said, when you're working in a larger district, but to be able to bring that distance, bring people still that sense of community and bring people together. And that really is at the heart of what we do. And we want our tools to be able to allow districts and schools to be able to do that. So that's fantastic. And then thank you for sharing that vision about where you want to see like next steps and where you want to see Orange County Public Schools moving in. So I want to go to the next question for Caryn. And that question is, so can you share the transformation that you would like to see at your school campus? I think that the way what Mariel just said just really lends itself to that. So what would you like to see happen at your school?
Well, you know, the highest level of learning, right, is building authenticity, right? And taking ownership of your learning. And the way that we do that is have students demonstrate what they're doing and teach others. And that doesn't just go for students, it also goes for professionals as well.
Yes.
And what I would like to see happen is for every person that is represented on this campus, whether it is whether that person's an educator or whether it's a student, to be able to develop their own teaching style and their lessons, and to have them demonstrate that through this particular type of platform. And so, you know, I'd like to see Swivl platforms be integrated with other platforms and have it be seamless, because what I see still to this day for a lot of educators, in particular older educators, and I'm in that group now.
Really?
Yeah. I just have a really good colorist, you can't tell. They see technology as one more thing they've got to do, right?
Yes.
But technology is really no more than a tool, much like a dry erase marker, a pencil.
There you go.
You know, paper, pencil, these are all tools for what we give our students to be able to learn a concept. And the fact remains is that our students are more technologically savvy each and every day as they come into our classrooms, and we're doing them a disservice by not providing these tools to allow them to demonstrate what they have learned. And if you've got, you know, if you have students that need to be on that higher level, you need to be able to teach them to be able to integrate these tools within what they're doing. So for example, I'm planning right now to teach our students how to use the Swivl Robot and make presentations more natural and fluid with that movement, and being able to show and feature the aspects of things that they're learning and record that using Flipgrid. So those of you that may not be familiar with Flipgrid allows you to record, you know, up to, I think it's 2 minutes, maybe it's maximum, on their site. And then students go in on Flipgrid and they make commentary about the presentations. And so it's kind of like a synth in a way, but it provides a safe environment for kids to be able to do that. And then the teachers can go in and make their own commentary and provide grades. So the Swivl Robot in and of itself would provide much more fluid movement and wouldn't contain the kids in a little box.
Yes.
And so I think that opens up to building those connections and providing those opportunities. And for educators, using some of these tools that you've provided would, again, I talked about having that master teacher library. That would also build connections, where I have certain break times. I just sent an email to one of our upper school teachers. She teaches a forensics class. The time she teaches, I can't go see because wouldn't it be wonderful if she could teach her forensics class and have it in that master teacher library so I can see what she's doing and maybe adapt some of her techniques to what I'm doing in class teaching earth space science. So these are the ways. Yeah, we can use these tools and be able to build those relationships and make it more valuable.
Oh yeah, and like you said, very sort of like what Mariel was saying as well, just bringing the distance, or even if you're in the same building. I agree. Right. There were times that I wanted to observe, I struggled with the reader's workshop. I just want to be very honest about that. And there were some teachers that were amazing at it. And I rarely had the time to sneak in and get a few moments to glimpse and figure out how they were so great at it when, it was something that I struggled with. It was a pain point for me. And so, yes, thank you for sharing that. So thank you all for participating in this panel discussion. I want to open it up. I know we have a few minutes. I want to open it up for any questions that were posed in the chat. So if you have questions for Caryn and for Mariel, you can type those in right now. And I want to check with Janelle and see if there's any questions that you or Andrea were able to field. And you can ask those right now.
Maurice actually had his hand raised. I didn't know if he had a question or something to share.
Was it me? I had my hand raised, I think. Or was it Maurice?
It was someone that asked.
You both have. Mariel and Maurice have their hand raised.
I think my boss, so I think we should let him do it.
Okay. I think he can type it in the chat. I'm not sure if we can unmute the mic for him to be able to speak, but he definitely can type it in the chat.
I'll let you know if I see it, but we did have a couple of really good questions that were asked.
Okay.
One of them was, how can Swivl build relationships with educators that already have built up a hesitancy towards using another tech tool? So, asking them to add something more to their plate. And Caryn, you did speak to this a little bit, but any other advice, Mariel or Caryn?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm going to build on something Caryn just said, because this is actually why I had my hand raised. And it's funny they asked that question. I think technology is a tool, but I also think technology functions in different ways in a school's ecosystem. Sometimes technology is content. Sometimes it's a method. Sometimes it's a responsibility. Sometimes it's a support. Sometimes it's a technique, right? And when I'm working with really resistant teachers, I'd like to focus on technology as a content. And let me tell you what I mean by that. The example Dr. Long just gave about having her students utilize the Swivl to be able to record themselves, right? And then give themselves feedback about how well their posture and this and that went, right? That's not just a tool. That's actually the Florida standards for speaking and listening. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, right, as a teacher, we're not always about trying the next fad, but we are always about making sure that our students acquire the content to the greatest depth that they can within our power, right? It doesn't matter if you work at a charter school, an independent school, a private school, a parochial school, a public school. I think that's part of what's in the DNA of an educator, right? So I think if you go to that teacher and you take the time to really look at the standards and say, okay, here in this section right here, and there's a lot of great examples in Florida in particular, Swivl can help us meet these speaking and listening standards. Swivl can help us to be able to meet this standard about arguments. Swivl can help us to meet these things. Then I think you encounter much less resistance than you do if you just go like, you know what would be really make kids excited today? They should do a video. Because they're like, that's great. I've got zero time for whatever's going to make my kid just feel excited today, you know, especially in a public school. To Dr. Long's point, there's a lot of external pressures. So I think if you can help make that connection. The other thing, and I'm like literally looking at the chart that we tend to use in our district, is if you can tie it to the teacher evaluation system. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean that from the perspective of gathering evidence, right? So if as a teacher, I can see the currency, and in a lot of places in Florida, the currency of success is what's happening in evaluation. If I can then say, okay, you know what? This is a way that you can help yourself. Yes, you could record yourself and engage in self-reflection, and that would be beneficial. But if you're not ready to use it with yourself and you want to use it with a student, let's look at how we can use this to record the classroom and not you, and be able to gain evidence about how well students are attaining the desired effect of your lesson, right? And really transfer that level of reflection to what's happening with students before we put it on ourselves, because sometimes that's a little bit easier. So I see that as both how you can go about onboarding teachers, and also how I saw that second question was really about like, how can you really get buy-in for that PD? And I think like, again, tying it to those standards and really making meaningful connections to evaluation, both for teachers and administrators, I think are the way to do that 100%.
I love those examples that you provided, because like you said, it's how can you focus on the content and at the core of who we are as educators. We want to make sure that we're meeting those standards and reaching students and seeing them to increase and learn more and improve. But then also, like you said, as a support as well. So fantastic, excellent examples. Is there another question, Janelle? Or did Maurice type a question in?
No, but there was another question. How do you communicate the value of Swivl and video for PD to your parents and local stakeholders?
I think we have like 30 seconds left. So Caryn, would you be able to just quickly touch on that?
No.
Being honest. 1 minute? Can you do it in 1 minute?
Well,
60 seconds?
I think the biggest message is demo. I mean, use it in front of your parents, use it with your parents during parent meetings, show them the value of it, show them that it's not just the toy that kids, you know, it's not Xbox. Yeah. It's not their phone, that there is use for it. So demonstration is powerful in making sure that you provide that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're moving on beyond that. And just so you all know, we'll be sharing our social media, how you can join our community at Swivl too. So you definitely have a platform and the ability to share more questions. If you think about it, go back to your school or your district and you're talking about Swivl and you want to gather more information, I'll be sharing that with you momentarily. But so we're moving on past that, but definitely I just want to extend a huge thank you to Caryn and to Mariel for taking time to just talk to our educators and about what your experiences have been like, what you've been dealing with, your wins, your vision, sharing your vision for where you want to go as far as working in your district, working in your schools, and then how Swivl tools have been able to really assist you in doing so. And I did include social media handles for both of them here on this page. So if you want, they've both been gracious to say, if you want to reach out to them, they're definitely available to be able to answer those questions, because who better than those who are using it on a day-to-day basis and see the challenges, but also what the outcomes have been as a result of it. And just want to thank Team Swivl, all of you all for helping out. Thank you everyone for registering. We will send you a recording of the webinar later today. So please look for that in your email. But again, we can continue the conversation. So please join us and at Go Swivl for Twitter, for Facebook, and also for Instagram. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye.